No, I'll take my chance taking a bite of a baby. Hello and welcome to the Fat Jack Sports Hour. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm your host, the Fat Jack. The weekend is here. I'm not the only host. We're going to bring in Mr. Brandon Rush from Louisville, Kentucky. We get this show underway. It's week 0. College football's here. We're making money in the preseason. Baseball continues to turn a profit, and everybody's ready to get their season off to a good start. So we cannot waste any more time. From Louisville, Kentucky, Mr. Brandon Rush. How are you, buddy?
I am good. The fact that we have made it this far into the show and we have not said, hey, by the way, everything's winning. Baseball, preseason football has been good. But the fact we have actual college football games to bet on this weekend is phenomenal. Very excited for the action this weekend.
Yeah, this has been one of those months in August. You know, when we weren't on the show, we had our first show last week in parts of the country, but not nationwide. But this is so the first time we've kind of been able to mention, at least over the last month or so. August is not always profitable because you're in preseason. Baseball's free. There's a reason why we kind of tiptoe into the season. But this year is one of those years where it's benefited the guy who bet a little bit of money, like we recommend, on the preseason, on the bases. Bases are up over 20 games over the last month or so. That's free. So even at, $10 a game, you're up a couple $100. And then the preseason's also up. You can look at those results at fatjacksports.com under the results tab. And you'll see that I said this last week on the show, that I've kind of found some angles to make money betting the preseason. And what's interesting, Brandon, is I played these same angles for 3 or 4 or 5 years in a row. They just keep coming in. I mean, It has nothing to do with backup quarterbacks and matchups and all the things that you look at in football during the NFL season, but just based on trends and emotion and some coaches carrying and others not, we're clawing out more profit before we even get into the season. So now that we're here, everybody that's been taking advantage of that, they're already into profit.
Yeah, and if you missed those conversations last week, you can always go back on YouTube or subscribe to the podcast and hear those angles that you talked about last week for finding winners in the NFL preseason. And one of the biggest points I think that you made that kind of caught me off guard at first was that you need to not think of the NFL preseason as quote unquote NFL football, because let's be honest, it isn't. Yep. You're not getting the star players for a full game, sometimes even a full quarter. So motivation and a bunch of other factors really are the key components to look at. And I'm glad that you have found that, because it's putting money in our pockets.
Yeah. And telling people that is always strange for them, because they're like, no, wait a minute. The uniforms look the same.
Right.
But the minute that I realize that one has nothing to do with the other. So if you're spending any time handicapping like you would, even if you're a successful NFL and college football handicapper, which are very few of those listening, most people out there are guessers. But even if you're that way, if you're applying those same principles to the NFL preseason, you're losing money for sure. Because, and the great news is, Brandon, and this is kind of how we've been able to make money over the last couple of decades or more, is that understanding what the sports books are doing and how they're setting the lines, and then realizing that how you find winners has literally nothing to do with that, has created some value and some opportunities. It's literally like, remember the old Sugar Ray Leonard, whoever would raise his right hand up in the air and in a circle, and he'd punch you with his left hand? That's what we're doing. We're basically saying, look over here, and then we're punching you with the other hand that had nothing to do with the right hand.
Both my uncle and my grandfather did that just to me, just out of the blue, be like, oh, what's over here? Bam.
Yeah. They start windmilling you too. They'll windmill it with this one. Yeah. The bigger the motion, and then they come with the other hand. So that's basically what we're doing. We're saying, hey, look over here. The line setters are saying, look, we're going to put up the lines like we would if these were actual teams playing in the NFL. And we're saying, okay, that has nothing to do with where the winners are. Let's backdoor them, which is exactly what we're doing. We're sneaking around the back door. FatJackSports.com. Go get signed up today. We have so much to cover right now. I don't want to spend a lot of time selling. I listened to last week's show and certainly liked the second segment more than the first segment. The first segment was a lot of selling. But the problem is that guys right now are making decisions that are going to turn them into, at least through the month of September, winning profitable gamblers or losing gamblers. It's one or the other. You're going to make decisions today that are going to go a long way towards that. And so I do feel a kind of a panic to let everybody new that listens to the show, maybe for the first time, or you've downloaded the podcast and you've taken up that angle, to let you know that right now you need to sign up. If you wait, there's a 97% chance you're going to dig yourself a profit. Now, maybe not over the first day or the first weekend, but sooner than later, statistics will tell you you're going to lose money. And then a lot of you are going to sign up. the second week of the regular of college football or the start of the NFL is by far our busiest week every year
Yep.
because people. I'm going to go see how I can do. Maybe this year's different. Maybe I turned into Kenny Rogers over the summer. You never know why they come to this conclusion, but they start on their own. They dig themselves a profit, and then they sign up. The problem with that is, Brandon, as you know, is that now you're down. You're thinking about things differently. You're not as likely to do exactly what we ask because you also have a little bit of a panic. Wait, I'm going the wrong direction. This had better work so well, so fast. And the deeper the season goes along, the more that emotion takes over. So we want to prevent that. Right now is the only time for the football season we can prevent those panic emotions coming in when you've lost on your own. The reality is, look at the results tab on the website over the last 3, 4, 5 years. We've won money in September every one of those years. We've started out very, very strong in September every one of those years. Translation, by the time we get to October 1st, if you'll follow our system, you're going to be into profit. There's nothing better than a gambling season where you start into profit and then you end into profit, and you never have to dig yourself out, which is what most of the general public has to do.
Well, and also too, if you are smart enough to make the decision to get in now, there's a distinct possibility you could have the entire season's service paid for with the profit that you're going to make in September. Does that happen every year? Of course not, but you'll at least be on a better track. Whereas, like you said, if you wait to go on your own for the first couple weeks and then you dig yourself a hole, you're then paying more for the exact same selections. And then on top of that, having to dig yourself out of a 5, 10, 30 unit hole because, again, you thought you know what you were doing and you thought you broke the code in the summer. So that's a terrible game plan. The best option is to sign up and start winning today.
Yeah, and people do it every year. And to further your point, if you sign up going forward, the prices are actually going to go up, not down. So you're going to pay more going forward, and you're going to have that hole to dig out of. The other side of that is a guy that signed up a month ago, he's paying the same rate that you're paying signing up today. At $100 a game, he has paid for the entire football season, and we're not even into week 0 yet. So, as you said, it doesn't happen every week, doesn't happen every year, but the consistency in getting consistent selections will make you more money than if you don't and play on your own. So go to fatjacksports.com. I could go over packages. They're all listed there. All the prices are there. Everybody gets the same plays. I'm trying to just hit on the things everybody says. Do I bet enough? I don't think I bet enough, Jack. I only bet $50 a game. That's ridiculous. $50 a game is
that's
fine.
Me. That's me right there. $50 a game. I'm one of you.
And has been a winning sports gambler for more than a couple of decades now, 15 years or so. And he's building profit. So if that's you, $50 is fine. Now, $20, no. Play on your own, lose when you're done, go do something else. Go play golf, tennis, whatever it is you do. $50 a game. You really should not afford not to sign up because if you lose, let's say $100 a game, you lose 7 games over the first month on your own. On average, you're going to win about 10 games or more from us on the first month. That is a $1,700 difference between the 7 games you lost and the 10 games I'm going to win you. And heaven forbid I went on a 20-2 run. Now you've missed $1,800 while you've been losing $700 on your own. That's a bad way to approach the season. That makes October pretty dicey. So you're a must win before you get to Halloween. Don't do that to yourself. Go to fatjacksports.com, get signed up today, and start winning money. Brandon?
You got to make sure that you are betting or that you're winning enough to where you're getting the full-size candy bars for Halloween instead of the fun size.
You know what? It's important. It really is. Become that guy, especially if you have kids. You know, you want to be special to your kids. And not everybody can afford this. I get it. COVID killed a lot of the big candy bars. I understand that. But if you want to be next level with your children, if you have a 5-year-old or 8-year-old, fire out some of those extra big candy bars. Be the guy on your street that when his friends come by, you're giving him the big candy bars because you will be a superhero. That's literally a Marvels type move for a 7 or 8-year-old fat kid.
It really is. That I remember those houses to this day in Norman. And I made sure as a delinquent teenager that if we were out ever doing really delinquent stuff that we just avoided their house because they were like, oh, that's the house that gave away the king-size Butterfingers.
Exactly right. Those are the houses that get the guy in the sheet with the 2 holes cut out. They're the ghost, and then they're bending over basically on their knees when they come to your door so that you're thinking they're not 17 years old looking for big candy bars. But You're right. Long term, it might benefit you a lot when people are deciding who to egg and who to TP and stuff. So
exactly.
Make that money in August, September, and October so that you don't even have to worry about it. Go to fatjacksports.com, sign up today, and win. Brandon, college football, and we don't have a full slate this weekend, and that's perfectly fine.
Yes, it's a little appetizer, and there aren't exactly intriguing games. I guess probably the most intriguing game of Saturday's slate is that Navy Notre Dame game. Will kind of take a little bit of a stand that I don't like that the first game is being played overseas. Maybe that's just me holding on to the last little bit of tradition that college football has. That said, it's a new day and age. And hey, you know what? If it wasn't for this game last year, Northwestern probably doesn't win a game in 2012 or 2022. So, hey, good for them. I get the feeling, though, Notre Dame will win at least more than one game on more than one continent this year.
And as we get later in the weekend, there are some decent games.
Sure.
I mean, we've got who are the other ones I was looking at? You have Miami, Ohio. That's not great. Florida, Utah is certainly an important one. That's one
Hawaii,
that
Vanderbilt. I mean, if you're not fired up for that game.
I don't mind the Nebraska Minnesota game. I mean, I understand a
Mm-hmm.
lot nationally that's not a huge thing, but if you're either a Big 12 fan or a Big 10 fan or the middle of the country fan, that's one of those you always want to kind of see what the progression of Nebraska football is, and you'll get a sneak peek. Minnesota's good. They're at home. As we go through the show, and I'm going to do more of this in the second segment, but I do want to give out just some general trends. Also, Louisville, Georgia Tech. I'm on Louisville. They're a 7.5-point favorite at Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech's been kind of morphing into a different type team over the last couple of years. And so we'll see what they have from an offensive standpoint. Colorado, prime time, coming to Fort Worth, Texas. TCU, 20.5-point favorite at home versus the Buffs. That should be something. Tennessee, we're on a Knoxville. Everybody's fired up about Knoxville football, about Vols football. I went on this last week in Knoxville, and we talked about just some auto bets that you might be able to do with them. And I'll tell you, Brandon, and I'll tell the listeners out there, if there is an auto bet within the entire college football landscape that would be an in-game play or not a full game side or total win play, it would be Tennessee over the total in the first quarter, whatever their points are, also for them to win the first quarter. Those are two bets that have been incredibly profitable over the last 5 to 6 years. This team leads the country in points in the first quarter, in covering in the first quarter. They're the type of team that you can definitely rely on to start early, especially when they play inferior talent. So that would be one of those bets within the game where if you're going to branch out a little bit, that might be a place to look.
Interesting. I mean, you get Josh Heupel's offense, and he's obviously proven that he can fire up some teams, and he understands from his time at Oklahoma and his time at Central Florida that you get on teams early, it makes play calling in the second half a lot easier. Now, without Hendon Hooker at the helm, I don't know if that changes the dynamic at all for Tennessee, but we will see what they can put together. But I really like Josh Heupel as a play caller. I think he's definitely grown in the last decade or so.
And a developer of talent, which is where I
Yes.
land on the Hooker situation. Hendon Hooker might be a great quarterback, might be a
Mhm.
great college quarterback. We may never know what he is in the NFL. But what I'm banking on is that Josh Heupel, whoever they reload with, is going to be proficient enough. And he is one of those offensive minds that has players running around wide open. And so if you're not, it's really, really hard. Similar to the option, it's really hard to simulate that in practice. And so I think they have success. Teams do make adjustments, but look for that team to start early, more times than not, at least early in the year. So that's just one thing. As we go through the show, I want to talk about just some general trends. We talked last week about giving people the whole landscape of the games is really, really difficult to narrow down to where you should actually be looking when you start handicapping the games from an A team versus B team standpoint. So I'm going to give some different trends that may get you at least heading in the right direction as it relates to college football here after we go to the break. So let's do this. Brandon, what do you want to talk about? We can talk about conference stuff. We can talk about predictions for the different who's going to win the national championship, or we can get right into some of these trends that will help guys make some money. Or I can tell you about that I was trying to be scammed. I'm being scammed by Facebook Marketplace and somebody I think might be in Australia, but someplace else who's trying to get me to send money through Zelle, and we can basically public service announcement. So where do you want to go?
I definitely want to hear that story at some point today. But I think the trends for college football definitely are going to be on the tip of everybody's tongue heading into this weekend. So let's fire those up.
Yeah, absolutely. So taking advantage of things early when you don't know a lot about the different teams. All right, so
which we
college
don't
football.
because we don't get a preseason in college football.
Don't get a preseason. You have a huge transfer portal now.
Mhm.
Besides just general graduation that you've had to deal with most of your life, you now have this transfer portal that'll turn a team like TCU last year that won 2 or 3 games in 2 years ago into a team that makes the playoffs and makes the finals the following year based on who they pick up in the portal. There's not enough hours in the day for most of you to even go through and figure out who's new and who's not, more or less having been to any of the spring games or the preseason camp leading up to this week and next week. So let's just take some general information that we know over the last 10 years or so have got us into some good spots. We can't bet this every single game, but it'll narrow down that field this weekend and next weekend into getting us at least looking the right direction. Home favorites of 30 points or more in games where they're playing an FBS opponent. So playing a worthy opponent where there's going to be a line, but they're a big favorite and they're at home. Those teams have covered since 2014 72% of the time.
Oof. So whereas in the NFL, we talked about last week, the brand carries a lot more weight in college football, it would seem, than it does maybe in the NFL.
It is exactly right. In weeks 1 through 5, in weeks 1 and 2 in the NFL, favorites of 1 to 5 points, the favorites are 31 and 55, so hitting about 36%. So you do not want to play favorites in that spot. You want to play underdogs that are hitting about 64% in weeks 1 and week 2. That's the NFL. Dogs overall in the NFL are at a huge clip, almost 60% over the first 2 weeks. Where in college football, we wanted, at least generally speaking, flip that. Think favorites, think big favorites, and then think what would you do if you had a big favorite, especially earlier in the year, we're trying to make a splash with your team. So teams of 30 points or more, who's going to be in this group? USC playing San Jose State in week 0. They're over 30. Central Florida against Kent State. Michigan against East Carolina. Oklahoma against Arkansas State. Alabama against Middle Tennessee. Auburn versus UMass. Texas A&M against New Mexico, and Texas against Rice. All of those big favorites that are over 30 points. And if you go back to 2014, every single team in that spot, about 7 out of 10 of those are not only winning, but covering the number. So be sure and think about that when you're trying to get deeper into your who you're going to release. Start with those type of numbers. Big favorites at home is not a bad place to start.
Boy, some of those numbers are really big, but when you start thinking about the talent disparities, and as you mentioned, the transfer portal is benefiting, I believe, the larger schools more than it is those other FBS schools. So a team like San Jose State probably not getting enough talent influx in the summer to really make a dent in that 30-point line against USC.
Yeah, they're getting players that went to a decent school and had no starting time at all.
Right.
Have no, and a dad says you need to go someplace you can play.
Started at a Power 5. They got like they were just the odd man out, or they got homesick and they transferred back home.
Now the difference is that when you're looking at some of these other schools that are not Alabama and not Georgia or Ohio State or Michigan, you're going to get a very accomplished player, a good player that's going to go to a school like TCU, going to go to a school like Oklahoma, going to go to a school like Auburn or Texas or someplace where they think they can not only play, but they can make a big impact and start winning some games. So you actually are able to bolster your roster in that. That's kind of the sweet spot right now for the transfer portal, is not Alabama, Georgia necessarily, and not the low schools, which we knew were always going to be left out of basically any formula that we did. It's that good but not great team that makes them a little bit better. So that's what we're going to look to start. Home favorites of 30 points or more will get you into profit more times than not in week 0 and week 1. So go to fatjacksports.com and get signed up. Here's the problem with that trend, all right? And don't confuse it with just looking favorites of any amount. Because if you dig a little bit deeper into that trend and you go to favorites of 12 points or more, all right, so now we're down into teams that just given a couple of touchdowns, not 30, just a couple of touchdowns. That threshold between 12 points and 30 points, they're covering about 40% of the time.
Ooh.
So if you're looking for NC State, 16 against UConn, Texas Tech, 13 against Wyoming, Oregon State, 16 against San Jose State in week 1, so not week 0, week 1. Clemson against Duke coming up. Those type teams, Washington State, Ohio State, they're given between 12 and 30. Those teams more times than not are not covering, only 40% of the time. So just a couple of things. These are not things that you can take to the window and make money every single week, every single year. But what
Right.
they
You're not doing it blindly, but
that's
these
right.
are just numbers to at least consider.
They're not blind bets. Blind bets, auto bets right now, I would look at would be over in the first quarter with Tennessee. So bet their point total over in the first quarter. If you want to if you're looking, especially if you're listening in Knoxville, but if you're looking for a blind bet, that's a pretty good blind bet. The rest of these, it's just a place to start if you're trying to find winners against the spread. Go to fatjacksports.com if you don't want to have to deal with any of that, because I'll be able to dig through all of this stuff and not just get you into the second of probably 10 different things that I'm looking at. I won't be able to just get you in the second one. I'll take you all the way across the finish line and then text those plays to your cell phone, send them to your email, and get you on a winning track as we hit the football season. So go to fatjacksports.com, sign up today, and win. Hey, this is the Fat Jack. It is football season. Are you ready to make some money? Fire up and get signed up right now. Go to fatjacksports.com and get signed up today to add disciplined, responsible gambling, and most importantly, winning plays to your betting system. Everything is texted to your cell phone or emailed to you. It's going to get you into profit. And always remember, guys, especially early, it's not the betting that she hates, it's the losing. Get signed up today and stop losing. Go to fatjacksports.com.
Welcome back to the Fat Jack Sports Hour. And now here is our host. He is the big man on campus. He is the Fat Jack.
Thank you so much, Brandon. Fat Jack Sports Hour, segment number 2. The big man in my office, that's for sure. I'm excited to be talking about campuses, though. I mean, we're back to college football. Everybody's excited. A lot of major schools around the country be kicking up next week, but it's nice to have something going this week. Everybody's so optimistic this time of year. Everybody's in such a good mood. People, guys signing up are great. That is not the case. When I get into October, November, people are crappy. They are angry. And if you don't want to be one of those guys, go right now and get signed up. You're going to win. You know, the margin of error becomes much smaller when you dig yourself a hole on your own. So go to fatjacksports.com, get signed up today, and start making money betting the games against this spread this year. So first segment, we talked about the week 0 games, Brandon. I'm like you. I know a lot of people out there listening are they're wanting information that's going to help them make money. Where do you want to look first? I mean, there's some long-term stuff. We did this with the NFL a little bit last week, and we're going to talk about the NFL gave away Baltimore to win the Super Bowl at a longer shot, some different prop bets. And next week, we'll talk about some player props in the NFL and much, much more as we get into, the NFL season. But as we head into this time of year, where do you think people are most interested in making some money?
I mean, obviously, everyone's going to have their attention on the early discussion about, well, who do you think is the team to win the national championship? And obviously that conversation starts and ends in the SEC with Georgia and Alabama, that they're 1A in a lot of sports books. That's that third choice is Big Ten, whether it's Ohio State or Michigan. And then starts the run of everybody else. As of right now, as I'm looking on DraftKings, there's only 4 teams with championship odds for the national title that are 10-1 or less. If you were to take those top 4 or the field, which way would you go in that aspect
of making of winning it all? It's not even close. This is not the place you want to tie your money up.
Yep.
All right. If you're talking about winning the national championship in college football, in my opinion, there's not one team that's worth $1. You have to tie. The odds are, look at history. We have to look even further than what's happened. It's going to be out of the SEC. It's either going to be Georgia or Alabama that are in the game. And so you're having to fade them with a team like TCU. A longer shot's going to be TCU, possibly USC, somebody like that, who I've already talked about. Texas. This team underachieves almost every year. And so even with making the playoffs, if you say, all right, who's going to make the playoffs, you get minus 220 with a team like Georgia. Alabama plus 155. Ohio State, Michigan are shorter than that. After that, it's 2.5 to 1 with USC and then Texas and then longer shots. But the reality is you're probably not even going to even if you get them in the tournament, you're not going to win. So you're going to want to be in a hedge situation. And that's really hard to figure out which one is going to be the team. I will tell you this, Brandon, if I had to pick a team And if they weren't in the SEC, I would probably play this team, is Tennessee.
Okay.
The number one team in the country last year offensively. They beat Alabama last year. They have a coach I believe in. I mean, this is a type of team that I want to take a shot with. All right. But the problem with that shot is it becomes an all or nothing deal for anybody beyond Alabama and Georgia. Nationally, we will give excuses for a loss to Alabama or Georgia, but we're not going to buy in to the Tennessee factor, even though last year they were rolling along, beating everybody until their quarterback got hurt.
Yep.
And then they lost. We still, as a public of who's going to be, or a committee, whoever it is that's putting these teams in, they're not going to buy it. So they're going to have to go undefeated, which is super, super hard to do in that conference. They would be the favorite, in my opinion, to win every other conference in the country except the Big Ten. And I would absolutely be betting them to win the Big Ten if they were in that conference. This is not a terrible team defensively. They're going to get better defensively, just not with natural. They had a lot of success, and they will pick up people in the transfer portal and so on. And offensively, they were the best team in the country, even with the backup quarterback. I love that combination, but I'm not going to bet them in the SEC because even if they were, it's similar to last year, Brandon. We had this conversation. Tennessee was at least in the conversation of possibly making it, but we're not going to put them in. If they had the same resume as last year and had been Alabama or somebody like that, they probably get in, or they at least are real close to getting in. But because we don't believe it until we see it consistently, which helps us when we're betting on games. But we're trying to predict who's going to make the playoffs and in turn win the championship, it becomes really uphill. So I would say don't bet anybody. Here's what I would do. I would take a team like the Louisville Cardinals. All right. This is a team that is not projected to do anything in their conference.
Brand new head coach, bringing in some new players, has a new quarterback, a lot of newness in the Ville,
and had 0 preseason votes in the top 25.
Mm-hmm.
Yet, when you look at their win total out of Las Vegas, you know what their win total is in Vegas? Have you looked at this, Brandon?
I don't, but I would guess probably in the neighborhood of about 8.5 or 9.
8.5. 8.5. How is a team that's not supposed to win anything and beat anybody going to win 8.5 games? That tells me those are those gaps, those discrepancies that I look to take advantage of. Vegas believes that even with the coaching staff change and even with their schedule, they are going to be able to win between 8 and 9 games. If they win 8 and 9 games, Brandon, they're playing in a bowl. They're relevant.
I mean, if they win that many games, they could very easily be in the ACC championship game.
Right. So if you believe Vegas and their analytics and their math, it's not like Louisville's Texas or USC or somebody that's going to get a lot of backers based nationally that are just betting because they want to have money on their favorite team. That's not Louisville. That's not Louisville. Louisville, they are projected this high because when Vegas did the power ranking ratings of every team in the country, they decided with what Louisville has coming back and what they know about the roster and the coaching staff that they are going to far exceed expectations. So I'm looking to take advantage of that. I want to let Vegas do some work on some of this stuff, look at where there's a discrepancy in what the general public thinks is going to happen with the team and what Vegas thinks is going to happen with the team, and then I want to capitalize on that. I absolutely what's that?
I was going to say Louisville to win the ACC right now, 10-1.
Take it. Don't take it for a lot.
Sure.
But we're talking about 10 to 20%. We're talking about these type of bets. We're going to tie up money the entire year. And I don't think that's the worst one in the world. They're a flyer. They're a long shot. But somebody in Vegas, actually consensus in Vegas, is that they're going to outperform the market by a lot. Now, am I saying they're going to win 9 games? That's a lot of games. But they're going to be relevant in a lot of conversations if they get anywhere close to 8 or 9 games. That's the type of team I want to take a shot with in the preseason in college football. Totally different conversation or narrative than we're going to have in the NFL. But in college football, that's what I'm looking at. The other auto bet in college football that I do is the University of Texas under everything. I know there's people out there.
Not to go to the playoff, not to win the conference, under win total.
Throw them out of everything. Throw them out of the playoffs. Throw them out of the Final Four. Throw them out of the national championship. Throw them out of winning the Big 12. And I do this every year. And so I'm not telling you. I'll have people I've got on Instagram break down why Texas is going to be great. You know, it's like Groundhog Day.
They're going 11-2. They're going to beat Oklahoma.
And they might. This might be the year. But what I do know is that from a standpoint of a guy that has played against him since 1996, almost every single year, They have won the Big 12 championship 3 times since the inception of the entire conference. Guys, think about that. What were you doing in 1996?
I was a sophomore in high school.
Sophomore in high school. That's a long time to only win the conference. We're not talking about national champions. We're
Right.
talking about the conference 3 times. 0 times since 09. I mean, I had a 7-year-old, and an 11-year-old, and a 7-year-old in 09. My
And now
kids
they
are
are
now
one's out of college and one's in college.
almost out of college. I got a senior in college, a guy working on Wall Street. That is how long it's been since Texas has won the conference championship. So from a gambling standpoint, I bet against him every year. Brandon, I look like Kenny Rogers every year. It's an auto cash bet, or at the very minimum, it throws out one of the variables and allows me to focus on other teams. Now, is this the year? Maybe. Maybe they do have it all together. Maybe they put it all together, and maybe this is the year. But I can make a lot of money and have made a lot of money betting against teams that have high expectations. The other one this year that I will throw out immediately, and I bring them up because we just looked at who's going to make the playoffs and who's going to win the national championship, is USC.
Yep.
Lincoln Riley's defenses since he has coached football. All right, we're not talking about at OU. We're talking about just him as a head coach. He has not had a defense in the top 30 but one time. And teams that win the national championship, Brandon, I know you know this, they don't have bottom 50, 60, 100 defenses. That does not happen. They get in the playoff against Alabama and Georgia and anybody else that can play defense, and they get smoked and they go home. They lose 56-32. And they take their ball and they go straight home. Lincoln Riley has never been able to coach defense. He has proven so far that he can't get a coach to coach defense, and he certainly can't get anybody to recruit defensive players. Now, do I want to bet against Caleb Williams winning the Heisman 2 years in a row? Absolutely not.
Going to be the number 1 pick in the draft.
I don't want to bet against that.
Nope.
Because Lincoln Riley's really good at those things. But what I know about Lincoln Riley is last year he had the 94th ranked defense in the country. In 2021, they were 60th. His team was 28th in 2020. 64th in 19, 101st in total defense in 2018, and 82nd in defense in 17. This dude can't coach defensive football. And you're not winning anything important other than the Pac-12 and maybe a spelling bee out there right now. You're not winning any of that without a good, not just a good defense, a really, really good defense. And he has never done that. Again, maybe this is the year, but I'm going to make a lot of money betting it's not. So those are the two things, Texas to underachieve and USC to underachieve, especially late in the year. And although that won't help you in conference necessarily with USC, because they certainly have proven they can win their conference, it'll help eliminate a team if you are going to tie up some money long term.
I love it. Another team, Jack, that I'm really kind of keying on to possibly make some noise in a conference championship scenario is SMU. That's a program that is recruited very well. They have a game week 2 against Oklahoma. That's really going to be a measuring stick for that program. They are plus 330 to win the American. Everybody, I think, is going to be on Tulane considering the success that they had a year ago. And it's one of only 2 conferences in which the favorite is over plus 200 to win. So I'm really high on what SMU can possibly do. Obviously not in the national championship picture, but in terms of a team that can come off the radar maybe a little bit and be in the conversation for a conference championship, I'll take 3-1 on SMU.
Yeah, and we're just looking for sweats, right? I mean, when we're looking at longer shots, we're not going to tie our money up on a favorite because too many things can go wrong. Injuries happen, all sorts of things. So we're looking for a sweat, somebody that's a little bit longer that has some potential to do something great. SMU's the type of team that's returning a bunch of starters, which helps them 8 on offense and 8 on defense. So that's a ton of kids back. They were inconsistent last year. Certainly on defense, they were inconsistent. But you talk about a measuring stick for them against Oklahoma. How about a measuring stick for Oklahoma?
Against that team, yeah. Because if they go out and they dominate SMU, then, okay, we can maybe pencil them in for, a checkbox, as you mentioned, to know what to – it'll answer a question for us down the road. If they go out there and they lose to SMU or it's a one-possession game late, that leaves a lot of question marks that we still have to investigate as the season rolls on.
Well, and offensively, against even decent defenses, not great defenses, but decent defenses last year, this SMU put up a bunch of points.
Yep.
And so they had better, and why that matters, you had better get some stops. I mean, this is a team scoring 77 against Houston, 45 against Tulsa, 27 against Cincinnati that wasn't horrible defensively, or 27. They scored 40 against Navy. They scored 34 against TCU that ended up playing in the national championship game, at 23 in their bowl game, and 34 against Memphis. This team scores in the 30s. If Oklahoma's not better defensively, it's going to be at the very minimum a nerve-wracking day in Norman, Oklahoma in week 2.
That'll be definitely a game that a lot of people will have circled for on their viewing calendars in a couple weeks.
Well, how about PTSD coming up? I mean, if they can't get a stop against SMU, that's going to be the vibe in that state in Owens Field on Saturday. If we can't stop SMU, how are we going to stop Texas or anybody else in conference? Our defense, and that's when all heck's going to break loose if you're a Sooner fan. So I would tell you, circle that up. Also, Rhett Lashley, his second year at SMU, that helps. You get a second year of the program, establishes some identity. That's definitely not the worst place to look. So if you don't want to have to dive through all that and you're worried about how you're going to feel in week 1 or week 2 of your team, no matter where you are in the country, go to fatjacksports.com. Get signed up today. Consistent selections. Everybody pays the same price. It's not about how much you're betting per game. It's about signing up. The longer packages will save you a ton of money and will get you into profit faster. So right now is the time that you want to make those decisions. Go to fatjacksports.com, get signed up today, and win this season playing the games against the spread.
Hey, it's Brandon Rush from the Fat Jack Sports Service. If you want to stay in touch with everything related to the Fat Jack, follow us on all the socials: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok, you name it. We are there at Fat Jack Sports. You can also watch the Fat Jack Sports Hour on YouTube every weekend. Plus, see funny clips from the show, see Jack's appearances on the nationally syndicated TV show Beat the Odds. Stay connected to the Fat Jack at Fat Jack Sports on all the socials and on YouTube.
Welcome back to the Fat Jack Sports Hour. And for the final time in this week zero, he's no zero. He is the Fat Jack.
Thank you so much, Brandon. Fat Jack Sports Hour. Why did they call it week 0? What a dumb name.
So, I mean, honestly, I don't know. They probably could have come up with a better, just like kickoff weekend.
Kickoff weekend. I mean, how hard is that?
But at the same time, ESPN owns part of the Kickoff Classic, which is that game in Atlanta, and then it's all this. Basically, they haven't found a corporate sponsor for it yet, which is amazing because that's all that's driving college athletics and television right now. So it's a little surprising that they've gone with something as dumb and as lame as week 0. Yet here we are.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. So Fat Jack Sports Service, week 0, whatever, winners are ready to go. Get you into profit to start the season. Very inexpensive. You get the weekend for as little as $129. Baseball's winning. NFL preseason is winning. All those plays come along with your week 0 plays. A great time to get signed up. Get into profit now. Or sign up through the end of September. It's only $4.99. That's going to get you everything for about $100 a week. It's going to save you about $600 or $700 versus going weekly and doing the old "let's see how the old boy does" routine, which ends up costing people a lot of money, especially in the month of September. So fatjacksports.com, get signed up today and start winning. Quickly, public service announcement. My daughter's trying to sell some chairs on Facebook Marketplace.
No.
They reached out, said we want to. My sister's going to come by. I want to pay you the money now, and then I'm going to send her by. That way, she doesn't have to mess with paying. Do you take Zelle? My daughter says, yeah, we take Zelle. Send it over. So they take down your email address along with your name. Then they basically do nothing with Zelle. They send you an email saying we sent you money, and then they send you something. All looks like it's from Zelle. And it says, hey, this person has a business account. We need you to pay $300 more to turn their personal account into a business account. Then the buyer offers to pay that $300 as long as you'll send it back to them after you get it. Because basically to take it from a personal account to a business account, it has to be a $500 transaction. At least that's what they're telling you.
Christmas.
All of this is a lie. It's all a scam. Then they text it. I told my daughter, I said, give me the number. So they start texting me. And they said, why are you making this harder than it has to be? And I said, that's what she said. And we got it off into that. And then I said, you want to meet up anytime? And they, of course, can't meet ever. It was a whole scam. Don't fall for it. Don't ever send anybody any money. All right. Especially if you're listing it on
through Facebook.
Yeah. It's just so ridiculous. People are horrible is what I've learned from this. So
I long for there are things that the internet has made a lot easier and better. Things like that are not. I cannot tell you the amount of times my father-in-law has had his Facebook account scammed or spoofed, or like someone's got in and started making changes.
Yeah, putting up naked people with huge packages.
It makes you long for the days of going to garage sales with $5
Right.
and just seeing what you can get, because you can't
Well,
do that anymore.
no, there's no garage. I told my wife, I said, we should have a garage sale to get rid of all this crap when I'm out of town, of course, because I don't want to be a part of it.
Of
And
course.
she said, nobody does garage sales anymore. And she's right. I said, but I don't want to have to deal with Facebook Marketplace people and
Mhm.
all that kind of stuff. So, I mean,
There are apps that kind of cater to that market, but yeah, I would say if you're doing anything on Facebook, you should not. Period. Let alone
yeah, it's
buying or selling goods.
too much work for sure. So fatjacksports.com, make that same money getting signed up. Let's talk about national championship stuff, Brandon. Do you have a pick for the national championship, either favorite or not? I mean, really the honest answer is if you're going to pick it, you want to pick the winner. So I can't at this point say, hey, I need a long shot for sure. And then you'll be held to that standard because I've told you to pick a long shot. If you have to pick one team right now, who is it? Who you like to win it all?
As much as it hurts my heart, it's Michigan. They've got an offense that is doing spectacular. Of course, the head coach Harbaugh suspended for a couple of games. This is a championship that'll probably end up being redacted by the NCAA eventually, or at least taken away because of whatever they've got going on behind the scenes. But look at all the other teams. They're replacing quarterbacks. Stetson Bennett gone from Georgia. Stroud is gone from Ohio State. Bryce Young gone from Alabama. They're the only team with 10-1 odds or better that's returning their starting quarterback. I'm not a huge fan of Cade McNamara, but at the same time, as far as a top to bottom team, they probably have the best shot right now, in my estimation, of at least being in the conversation and definitely making the playoff.
Yeah, they're down to 8.5 to 1 on FanDuel. And so they're getting some love. I mean, for the same reason you're talking about. I mean, you always look, especially in the NFL, you're looking for a team that's been relevant, been there late in the year, and then is trying to get over that hump. It's so hard to know what you'll get out of Georgia, or frankly, how much you need for the first 2 months of the season based on what they have defensively, that they can kind of milk their quarterbacks along. And we saw that last year. You know, they'll have games where they're playing closer than they're supposed to because they're basically trying to get the right type of offense going and that type of stuff. Alabama, as you said, you would think that it'd be tougher to reload with the more competitive nature of recruiting right now. Ohio State's underachieved late in the season, but the winner of that Ohio State Michigan game, I mean, they definitely are going to be in the Final Four, you know, unless something crazy happens. So not the worst place in the world. I'm going to go a lot deeper because I can't pick Alabama or Georgia, and I don't believe in the Big Ten to get there. I'm going to play Tennessee. I understand they have to replace quarterbacks, but I've already said I believe in what Josh Heupel is able to do. I thought that him hiring Peyton Manning was a brilliant move, by the way. You saw what he did there. Hired him on as a professor.
Yep.
So that he can basically talk to kids as much as he wants. That is the new fashion of recruiting, is you'd better be looking at the rules and figure out a way to move between the lines if you want to compete. You better be having some NIL money also. Those are two things you better be working on.
Those pockets are definitely deep down on Rocky Top.
Exactly. And so I think that this is a team that had they stayed healthy, it'd be interesting to see what the conversation would be right now. But people forget. It's that recency bias. We look at what happened late in the season. They lost a game they weren't supposed to. They played without their starting quarterback. But this is a team that I think will improve with their facilities, with their fan base, and with their coaching staff. This team's going to get better and better. And you're still getting them at, listen to this, 30 to 1. I mean, so I don't even have to, at that point, I don't even have to get them to win. I just got to get them in the tournament.
And you're not going to get that number anywhere close to that number come late September, early October, or even into November as the games really start heating up.
That thing will regress downward literally until they play Alabama or Georgia, whoever they play out of that group. They're going to go from 30 to 26 to 22 to 20. People will see their potent offense and any semblance of a defense, and they're going to find a reason to bet them. So get them now. Get them now. Like I say, $50, $100. Don't go crazy. If you're a $10,000 game player, play $500 on them. That type of deal. If you're a $100 player, play $10. You don't need to play any more than that. For those type of games, and by the way, I sent out a bunch of win totals, and you'll get those immediately. I have people signing up every day that are getting these win totals. Go to fatjacksports.com, and then all you have to do is be able to read. Read the win totals. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 college win totals, and more than that, 9. So about 16 total college win totals. Those have averaged 8 games of profit per year over the last decade, and those are free. You don't pay extra for them. You can't buy them. They only come to those who sign up for the season at FatJackSports.com. Make the best value you possibly can, and make the most money over the course of the year. So, FatJackSports.com to win. How are we doing on time? What else you want to talk about?
We got about 4 minutes left here. Is there any game? I know you don't go to many college football games really anymore, outside of maybe OU Texas if you're in town. Is there any game that you would consider going to this season?
Yeah, the problem with that is that a lot of the games that I would go to are not in states that have legalized sports gambling.
That is a problem.
So I would go to the SEC. I like those type SEC championship game. I've been to the Pac-12 championship game a couple of different times out in Las Vegas, but if it's or a bowl game that takes place even in California or someplace, because it becomes more. There's another element to that. I have to bet earlier. I'm not sitting there. I got to use my runner. There's a whole thing. So it's just been easier to not. I'm not going to go to Texas the first Saturday of October. First of all, I'm going to be in London covering the London games, and they allow me to bet over there. Last year, I made about 15,000 pounds.
Yep. Over
the course of the 2 weeks in London, and so I'll be over there betting in pounds, which is not as good as here, but still, so that's really the main reason. Is a lot of the bowl games are in Florida, a lot of the championship games are in states that don't have sports gambling. But to answer your question, SEC championship game I always think's great. If you get Alabama you get Ohio State and Michigan in the Big Ten, that's appealing to me. Or the playoff. So if you get that happen to take place at the Sugar Dome, where's the playoff this year? Do we know?
You know what? I was thinking that earlier, and I honestly don't know. That's normally something that is right on the tip of my tongue, but I couldn't even tell you where it is this year.
So Louisiana has sports gambling. So if it's Louisiana, I might go to the national championship there. I mean, I could see doing that. The rest of them, probably not. Probably won't go to the Orange Bowl. Those type of games. Maybe. I mean, you just never say never. But college football, I'm about making money for myself and my clients. I spend most weekends in Vegas, almost every one. And then leave the spectator, the viewing to other people. But I haven't been to OU Texas a number of years either. So go to FatJackSports.com if you want to win, though. So many games coming up that are great places to make money. Next week, we're going to talk a ton about the NFL. Because I have gotten really, I don't want to sprain my arm, but I've gotten really good at the NFL. I mean, we just winning like 6 out of every 7 weeks. I mean, I have figured out a way in the NFL. Finished in the top 100 in both the Circa and the Super Contest, Superbook at the Westgate. And those, they force you to pick 5. My clients did even better than those numbers because we don't have to pick 5 every single week. And we want to pick 7 or 8 games we can. So, but be sure to tune in next week for that and much, much more. Brandon, any final thoughts?
To put a bow on that, the semifinal games in college football this year are in the Rose Bowl and the Sugar Bowl. So you could at least bet the Sugar Bowl game. But that is New Year's Day, which means you'd have to spend New Year's in New Orleans, which is always intriguing.
I don't drink. I mean, it's just so much if you don't drink.
I'll tell you, New Orleans is on the banned list for me. If I am ever in New Orleans, one of 3 things better be happening. I better be getting on a cruise ship, I better be going to a Super Bowl, or I'm dead.
Yeah,
they're having my funeral. National championship game in Houston this year.
Oh my gosh. Okay, throw up right now. All right, I just threw up in my mouth. I don't want to go to Houston
ever.
Why is that? What are we doing? I thought it was supposed to rotate. What's in Houston?
I mean, they have the Texans Stadium, I guess. That's the big draw.
So we now have new rules. There's new rules. You can't. It's not just about the the BCS or whatever, the 5 bowl games. So not just rotating that. You can now pay enough money to have the thing in the middle of Houston.
I mean, we had the national championship in Indianapolis a couple years ago. So yeah.
Okay.
I mean, we get UCLA and Rutgers in the same conference next year. There are no rules anymore.
Mayhem has broken loose in college football. You're exactly right. So for more on that mayhem and so much more, go to FatJackSports.com, get signed up, don't miss out, and then call me right before Labor Day weekend and get signed up. You can make the money. It costs exactly the same.
All right, Jack. So I know we don't talk a lot of soccer on this show. Aside from the World Cup package that we had last year, I can count the number of times we've talked soccer on this show, maybe on one hand. But this week, I'm going to see one of the greatest of all time play in Cincinnati, Messi and Inter Miami, playing in an MLS game in Cincinnati. I have never been to an MLS game. I kind of told myself I wouldn't stoop that low because I think the MLS product is awful. But the GOAT's playing an hour and a half from my house. I got to go.
The World Cup's coming. Is that next year or 2 years? When is that?
It's 27.
Gee, man, Christmas, that's a long time.
It is a long ways away.
Super excited about that. But yeah,
yes.
We don't talk a lot of soccer, but I will tell you, we were talking off the air. The one thing I've learned about American soccer is how bad it is. Because I mean, Messi he scored in every single goal, every single game he's been in, a couple in one, and these aren't just penalty kicks. This guy's scoring from like midfield.
Right.
I
Yeah.
mean, it's
He's
not that.
connect from
But
outside the box, but you're right. The MLS is not a great product.
it reminds me of watching my son at U Chicago. I mean, the guy was a defensive lineman and averaging like 12 tackles a game.
Yeah,
I mean, it was just a
definitely.
man among boys, and that's what this is.
Exactly. But at the same time, I mean, I'm paying $270 to stand in a standing room only section of the stadium in Cincinnati just to watch Messi play. So I'm excited for that. I am though going to live bet the game. As you mentioned, he scored in every game that he's played this year for Miami, and their title odds to win the MLS Cup, which I'm thinking might be the first time ever in the history of the show mentioned, is they were, I want to say, like 80-1 before the season. As soon as he signed, that number dropped to about 20-1, and now they are like the second pick to win the MLS Cup.
Yeah, it's stupid how good he is and what a difference. I mean, outside of basketball, where you have one guy that can just take over. I mean, the fact he scored every single game. I saw a stat that if you had just rolled over,
yes,
not like $100 or something for him to roll over, you'd be up like $5 or $6 grand.
$5 grand, yeah, going into this game this week. So yeah,
and of course he's not going to score every game, but I mean, Healthcare been saying that for about 5 games. So
right,
maybe he will. I would absolutely go also, and I'm not a huge soccer guy, although I've become much bigger. I was in London during the 2 World Cups ago. And then we had the package this last year, made everybody a bunch of money on that. So I've really found a real soft spot for soccer. And so, yeah, I would definitely. I actually have a couple friends that play, or their kids that play in, I think, the level right below the MLS. They're not.
It's a much more entertaining sport to watch. It's like baseball. It's better to be in person than to watch on television.
Absolutely. And hockey for me. I can't. I go to hockey. I love hockey in person, but I can't watch it on TV. It's too much.
Hockey in person is the best live sports experience there is.
It really is. It really is. So what else you got?
I know that I'm not a big proponent of Barstool, but they have a great thing called Answer the Internet. And they really kind of ask off the wall questions. And I feel that you among a few of my friends are well suited to answer these kind of questions.
Before you ask this, I do want to know, because I'm not positive. I feel like Barstools is the against or the opposite of sports talk radio. Is that accurate or not? Are they not trying to draw listeners to their pod? Now, I love Sunday Conversation. I think Dave Portnoy is an absolute genius. I mean, he's me, but a worse gambler, but better at all the other stuff on social media and different things. But
he's a great marketer. I'll give you that much. I think he's a trash human, but
the are they the opposite of sports talk? Would you consider that if you were lining up teams? Is that not what they're trying to do? Am I wrong about that?
I don't think that's all they're trying to do is get clicks, and they'll go and say outlandish, stupid stuff in order to get attention. And there's a certain demographic that snags it. Now, KFC Radio, Kevin Clancy, that dude, I think is an absolute star. And I love his podcast, but outside of that, 9 times out of 10, I want none of their content.
All right. So what's the question?
All right. Would you rather change genders every time you sneezed, or not be able to tell the difference between a donut and a baby?
Wow.
I mean, there's a lot to weigh here.
Yeah, no, I don't think it's close. Every time I sneeze, I got to change back. So I'm a girl, and then I'm a boy, then I'm a girl, then
right.
No, I'll take my chance taking a bite of a baby, or I will just I guess more like I would coddle a donut, or I would just stay away from donuts and babies altogether. The idea that going around horses, which I'm allergic to. And what do you go to around horses and then you start making out with somebody? Then what happens? What are you doing there?
Allergic to horses?
I am. Sadly.
I did not know this.
I love horses. But my eyes swell up. I start sneezing. I literally will still get on horse-drawn carriages, or if there's a race, I have a friend that have a race. I will go up and I will give that horse kisses, understanding that I'm going to basically swell shut over the next 3 or 4 hours. And I just don't care. I love horses that much. But yeah, I'm allergic to horses. So what happens when I'm at a horse stall or something, I'm trying to, get with somebody. I guess I've been married 30 years. I'm probably not doing that. But if I was, what does that look like?
I mean, you go to the paddock before race 7 at Remington.
Yeah.
And then next thing you know, you're sneezing. You don't know which bathroom to use.
Where am I? That's exactly right. I'm standing out there waiting on the next, and then you got to run out of there if you get where you're sneezing in the bathroom. So no, I cannot, any type of, absolutely not. I'll take the baby and the donuts and just stop eating donuts and quit coddling or hugging babies, I guess. What about you?
The downside for me is that anytime I sneeze, I always feel as if there's another one coming. And if you get stuck as a gender that you're not, then you have to force yourself to sneeze to get back to normal, which is not an enviable position. And I hate that feeling that your face and your body gets like right before you sneeze, like you have to. Yeah. That's not comfortable. That said, I also really like donuts.
Yeah. Mine run in threes, so I would at least end up back where I started. Like I can sneeze 3 times, but unless I'm around horses, I'm not going to sneeze more than that. My body stops me for some stupid reason. But so I'd end up back where I started at least. It's just having to wait out the 3-pack.
Right. So keep you away from horses and you'll take your chances with donut or baby unknown.
I think that's definitely the answer right now. So, and yeah, you're right. That's a stupid question by people that are just trying to get people to answer stupid questions, but bought 5 minutes out of us. So I guess they're doing something.
It absolutely
right?
worked. I'm fired up for football to be back, Jack. And as I mentioned on last week's show, my 20th season here with you, and I'm fired up to make it the 20th profitable one as a member of the service.
Absolutely, brother. Let's have some fun. Everybody go out there, win this weekend, and we'll talk to you right here next week with a lot more material. We'll see you soon. Hey, this is the Fat Jack. It is football season. Are you ready to make some money? Fire up and get signed up right now. Go to fatjacksports.com and get signed up today to add disciplined, responsible gambling, and most importantly, winning plays to your betting system. Everything is texted to your cell phone or emailed to you. It's going to get you into profit. And always remember, guys, especially early, it's not the betting that she hates, it's the losing. Get signed up today and stop losing. Go to fatjacksports.com.